back, everyone. Welcome back to the old card shop. We are back at it again, this time with our friend Ray from the TrEwCollector, the TrEwCollector in the chat. But welcome. Thanks for coming, everyone. Thanks for coming, Ray. I do have his channel down in the description of the video, and Ray actually does really, really good content. Like, he doesn't have a ton of subscribers right now because he never pumps his own channel. I'm going to pump it a little bit for him right now. I didn't warn him too much about it, but go follow him because he has the greatest plays to steal in the hobby. Ray is your man if you want to go steal some fantastic plays. Ask anyone. You think I'm joking right now? You ask anyone in the hobby. If there's a man to steal plays from, it's this guy. So whichever way you are on my screen, up, down, whatever, go give him a follow, guys. He really deserves it. One of the best underrated and underappreciated channels out there. So we're going to hopefully get him a couple follows here. But that being said, this is going to be a stream dedicated to Collecticon, live selling in person, whatever, what have you, you want to call it. But we have two things happening in the coming months, and I want to talk about it. But Ray, how you doing today? Welcome to the channel. Thanks for coming on.
First of all, thank you for that fantastic introduction. I'm humbled, impressed, appreciate it. I don't really know what else to say, so thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate it. That was a good one.
Well, you deserve it, buddy. Thanks for coming on. This is your first time on the channel, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I do watch it. Typically, when you have Retro on the Cardboard Hands podcast, and what is it? Is it Jax? Is the other guy? I forget his name. Sorry, but or whatever his name is. Sorry.
Yeah, we call him
yeah,
Flex.
Flex. That's who it is. Sorry. I just know he's not there all the time. The last one I saw, I knew there was something going on. Was it his car or something? I don't know.
PK took over for him. Luckily,
that's what it was. Yes.
Yeah, that was PK. We were able to get a slide PK. We'll be back in the next one though. He goes in and out sometimes with the podcast, but man, I do appreciate you watching that too. And so anyone else who does watch that, go watch my podcast. We will be having a new one soon, but we'd love to make it. But like I said, tonight, Ray, you're going to Collecticon this weekend, right? Kansas City is what, coming up Saturday? Coming Saturday? And then it's Saturday, Sunday. But a lot of people, they're kind of going in Friday. So like, what's your sort of situation here? Let's just get right into it. What's your plans for Collecticon? How you flying in Friday or what's going on?
So this one's actually interesting. At first, I was actually planning on doing Tampa Comic Con with Weedle at Weedle's Warehouse. Chris, great friend to basically all of us, and they're just great guy. You should go check him out on eBay Live, YouTube, all that stuff. But we were originally going to do Tampa Comic Con. He put in the information, and this was like, May. And all of a sudden he hears back and said they're full, and we're like, well, crap, what are we going to do now? So I was like, all right, fine. And I happened to go check the Kansas City Collecticon site, and they happened to open tables back up again for whatever reason. Because it was full. I had asked another friend who's going there from Master Set Games. I don't know if you know Master Set.
Yeah, I know Master Set pretty well from my Whatnot days.
He great guy. I love him.
Yeah, he is a really nice guy. All that being said, nothing I say about Whatnot has anything to do with Master Set Games. They're fantastic, but yeah.
Yeah. So he was full, unfortunately, so I couldn't jump into his section. So then I was like, you know what? Screw it. I booked a couple tables. And just decided I'm just going to go do it myself. I don't have anybody, really backing me here. I don't, typically my first Collecticon I went to, I was with Dan or Nick, some really big people who I look up to in the hobby who might have a little bit of a marketing push behind them because of who they have is, how many subscribers, how many followers they have. Here, I'm just going and just seeing how it goes. If I can do it myself. I don't even know who I'm with in the section.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you don't really need to know too much about it. I feel like my first Collecticon that I went to, it was Long Beach of last year. It was like I knew a couple people in the hobby from meeting them at like other events. My first event that I went to in Pokemon was the Leonhardt pop-up shop or whatever. So like after meeting people online and COVID, I met a few people at the Leonhardt pop-up shop, but after that I didn't do anything else until CollectCon Long Beach, and I didn't vend at that one. But Denver for me was my first vending, and I was fortunate enough to really know everyone in the section. We had that big 10-person section right there in the front. I was next to Jake, and Old School kind of put it together for us, and Mason was there hawking cheap slabs. It was a really sort of iconic first time vending for me. So like I feel like I got a very easy start. So I really really wanted to think about, because like I've done quite a few conventions now since that convention. I was trying to think about like a list of things that I could like give to someone, maybe if they didn't have such an easy start, because like you're not always
Yeah,
going to go with a group of 10 guys that you know and you can trust. Sometimes you're literally going to have one table in a section that you don't know anyone else in it. And this is kind of what I want. My specialty, I feel like my strength is the one table, sort of one table, a variety of things, going, just picking up one person. You don't need another person, I don't think, for my style of sort of vending. So that's kind of what I was hoping to maybe get into about like Collecticon. So like, as far as your first experience goes, you probably had a pretty good first experience. You may have had an easy time like me, but was there something that really stood out for you that you learned immediately that you like regretted on your first time, that you're like, okay, never gonna do this again? Because that's something that I think that's really important, that like maybe not a lot of people think about. But I know there was one thing for me, but I'll let you kind of go
sure.
first unless you need to think about it. But
First of all, my first Collecticon, I had an absolutely insane experience. You'll know why in a second because you've seen them in action. But I was very fortunate where I was with Dan, Nick, and Jake, basically all together in a half section. So if you want to talk about learning from the best, I mean, I don't really know who else I could have learned from. I mean, Old School is an absolute monster when it comes to just manning his sections and just he'll have 5 seconds, five tables going at once and doing multiple deals at once. He's a lunatic.
he's a
So
machine, yes.
yes, so I had like me Jake and I split a case, which and like a half table, and it was Dan on the other side. So I have Dan with his ridiculous cards that he's bringing. Geez, I'm trying to forget what really moved, but I did learn a lot. But he just had, some of the higher end cards, like some of the monk promos,
Hmm.
as well as Jake just brought just the most random crap. And I mean crap in such
As
a
Jake is wont to do, his Star
yes,
Wars, his like,
yes, exactly.
numbered parallels, like of random IPs and cool, like, 1960s Disney cards and Pokemon cards from
Yes.
the 90s you've never seen. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's what
Totally.
he was showing me. He's like, yo, Ray, check out this like old Batman Joker card. This is like the first trading card with Batman and Joker on it. I'm like, this is a Pokemon collecting con, bro. And people were looking at it, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know how much of that stuff he sold. But the one real to answer your question, the one real takeaway of what I learned is one, just seeing those guys kind of talking with other people, engaging with other people, kind of telling them about, this card or this card, maybe teaching them a little bit of history about stuff, especially Nick. There's that part of it, and just always being nice to everyone. And then two, adapting and just having cards that are going to be relevant for a collecticon, right? Dan had his eye candy in the case because I don't know if you remember that week. It was actually Charlotte last year, but that's when he did the trade with Rusty for the #1 Worlds promo, I think.
Yeah, I think that was
It
Charlotte.
was,
Yeah.
it was Charlotte. It was for sure Charlotte, but he had so he had that just sitting like in his case.
He's
It's
just
like
displaying it just
just
for like
like
come over. Yeah, and a lot of people use like legendary collection for that. And that's definitely something that like I would put on the list. You're totally right. You want some eye candy. It's sort of, it sounds like that's kind of maybe what you're getting at a little bit, is you need something to stand out, and I definitely agree with that. So like that's definitely probably one of the bigger things, is like if you don't stand out, if you don't have anything that's going to like draw you from the crowd, apart from the crowd, people aren't going to come up to your table. That's actually why I wore this hat in this stream. This is my lucky Collecticon vending hat. This is one of the most underrated to me. This is, I had one Collecticon where I didn't have this hat, and it was the worst Collecticon I ever had. So like I personally use this hat as my good luck, and I blame it when I don't have it. But I do feel like it makes me more approachable, and it makes me stand out in a crowd. This is a goofy Magikarp guy. So like one of the things I would definitely recommend to someone. This isn't like the first thing I learned. Like the first thing I learned at Collecticon, I'll just get it on the table, was buy a full 2 cases for your section. Like I did 1 case on my first Collecticon, and I had like 1 case on half the side of the table, and then all my stuff like spread out on the other side. And I really felt like I just would have much rather had 2 cases, because you still have extra room. So like a lot of people, like the first timers, you're kind of tentative. You're kind of thinking, I don't want to go all all in and really do two cases and kind of do too much. But I highly do recommend the first timers get the two cases because you'll definitely wish that you had it, because like space and Collecticon when you're working with such a small space is definitely a premium. And like when you're working with such a premium on space, you do have to have eye candy in there, but it can't all be eye candy at the same time, too, right? You have to have some things that move. So, like, kind of going into a little bit more of that sort of direction, like having those nice expensive things like first edition base set, you know, and the $500 to $1,000 like high end slabs in your case, like legendary collection, is fantastic to get those eyes. But the general average consumer who's walking by your table isn't going to bring out $1,000 and plop it on the table and buy one of your expensive cards. They're going to maybe look at your expensive cards, but they're going to probably, in my experience, I find that my sweet spot for selling things, and I want to hear your opinion on this too, because I think you're a savvy enough guy that I think you'd have a good shot at probably giving me a reason to change my direction. But I try to stay in the $20 to $100 range on in the majority of things in my case. So like that doesn't mean I'm not going to have some like 200, 300, $500 slabs. I've got a black label in my slab in my case right now that's worth a lot more than all of that, but I majority try to stay within a range of what I believe the general consumer is going to have. So that's another piece of advice I'd probably sort of maybe throw out there. And I don't want
Sure,
to hear what you think about that though, because I know some people have a completely different sort of strategy. And I guess that'll go into like strategy as well, because that's
sure.
certainly something that you need to think about is like your strategy before you go. Because you don't want to just go in blindly. That's probably important to think a little bit about. So, and then we'll do some Q&A as well. So maybe if you guys have some questions, like as we're kind of going through the conversation, you want to drop in the chat, I'll try to let those marinate a little bit, and then we'll go through some of those questions. I'll pick through them. So feel free to do that, chat. I appreciate you guys.
So I'll counterpoint this and throw out the second piece of advice. You kind of gave the first there, and this kind of will lay up into what we're talking about because I know you know this, but price everything, guys. And that's like have
Yes.
everything
Okay.
there.
Yes.
You know, capitalize letters, underline it, price everything you have. Don't let anybody. First of all, I guess I'm going to counterpoint this as well with don't give anybody a reason to walk away from your table. And
Mm-hmm.
a good way for them to walk away from your table is they don't know what the hell you're selling stuff for.
They're like, what do I see? What is
Yeah,
this? Yep.
yeah. So price absolutely everything. That's basically the icebreaker. So really, what you're trying to do is hopefully conversate with them, find out, you know, what their favorite Pokemon is, what they're looking for, but most importantly, they can see what you're, you know, selling things for. Um, it's just it just makes things so much easier. I mean, it's the same thing if you're doing any kind of online buying, man. Don't you just hate when someone says DM me for price? It's like, no, well, what's the price?
Yeah. Tell me you don't want to sell it, or if tell me you don't want to sell it, or tell me you don't want to actually sell it without telling me you don't want to sell it, is by not having a price on the item or not having a price in mind. Like as a seller, your only thing you have to do is price your items. You don't have to say yes to the buyer. You literally just have to put a price on the item. That's your only job as a seller, really.
Yeah,
You don't have to give it a good price. You could give it a high price. Like, I
sure.
mean, I priced some cards a little higher on purpose. That's something we can maybe get in a little nuance. I think some cards sell better at conventions than others. That's like not a day one sort of advice I would give to someone, but it's something I would definitely think about doing is curating your inventory to your customers or what you think will move. So I think you mentioned it a little earlier. Having popular species or cute Pokemon or things that was sort of what I was alluding to with having between the $20 and $100 range, things that were more accessible. I think that's sort of my general overall strategy with those types of conventions. But also, I would say that there's probably something to be said if you don't want to sell slabs about just doing the whole binder route. So that's one reason I kind of wanted to bring you on too. Is you're a totally different style of selling than I am. Like you have a lot of raw cards and binder at your table. I actually don't sell a lot of raw cards. So like I'm curious,
That's
like
a
where
mistake, my friend.
yeah, well, I know it's a great strategy because I sell some raw cards and I do see how well they go, and I've seen other people do it, and it does really good. Like my friend Swami at Denver, I was right next to him, lucky enough to be eye on his
Excuse
table.
me. What, he
He,
can't be my friend too? I
well, okay,
identify as a
our
friend as
friend,
well
I'm
then. Thank
sorry,
you.
he's a hobbyist friend at this point. The man is a
Yes.
blessing. He just memes the best clips of everything and
Yeah.
makes us all look ridiculous. So if it wasn't for him, I would just have to make myself look ridiculous, which that's pretty easy to do. But no, I was able to see how well he did with just just in top loader. I found his strategy was just to get all these like top loaders and put the price on the cards, like, and so people would pick them up and like rifle through them, and it was like a madhouse at his table. He had like 5 people around, just like picking it up, and like he was just standing there, kind of chill, watching. I don't think he had any issues with like things walking away. I was right next to him, kind of like,
Well, in Fort Worth for me, I had someone unlatch one of my cases, but
yeah, okay, so that's something we'll probably have to touch a little bit of it. If you're
yes.
gonna do singles, you want to be a little bit careful with them because there is some potential for. But with binders, you don't have as much of an issue because you have to take the whole binder and like literally run. So you'd probably get tackled by some security guard or something, which might be worth just seeing as a spectacle, because they wouldn't get that far. But no,
So
I do think that strategy is important. So like this is kind of a good differentiation, like between my selling, your selling. I think going to a collecticon maybe and like thinking about what you're going to do, since you have a limited space. You have space for 2 tables or 2 cases on your table, but you also have space for a little extra, like in the middle, on the side, in the front. You can really kind of play around a little bit and have a little extra space. So maybe having a mental idea or a plan is a good idea. And so going into Kansas, into this Collecticon, I want to know what's your plan, Ray, because I'm curious what you're doing specifically. Maybe some people can take a little information and something from
so
that.
to answer your previous question, I do try to stick between the 50 and the 250 range for price. I will
Mm-hmm.
have some slabs in the case that will be, of course, like a premium type slab. Like I'm planning on bringing, I have a 15th anniversary Pikachu that I bought not too long ago, PSA 10.
That's
Gonna throw
that's
that.
pretty penny.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw that in the case, see what happens. I do have a price. It's kind of like it kind of just jumps on what you were talking about. Like I'll put a price on it, and if someone wants to buy it for the price that I want to put on it, that's fine. But I'm not necessarily trying to look to sell it either, you know. But I'm not trying to fire sell it. There's some stuff that you're trying to move to fire sell, like those $20 slabs that you're talking about. Um, why not just throw those like in an ETB box to the side and say $20 slabs? Because in a binder, this kind of goes in with the binder talk. I'm going to put probably raw cards up to about $20 in there. And past that, that's when they start going in cases. If it's like $25, $30, that goes in the top loader in a case. Much easier to, be concerned about that walking away. With binders, unfortunately, it also applies for price everything. So if you have a 360-page binder, I mean, make it easy on yourself. Create a dollar binder, create a $2 binder. Or I also have a higher end binder. Well, I mean, every card may be listed as like, you know, 5, 7, 5, 6, 5, and I'm going through each one. And trust me, it's worth it. I'm also fortunate, and this is some experience, but also something that should be your job as a seller is just networking. And there's 2 ways of networking. One is, finding the people like, we have our buyouts that come. Josh, you know what I'm talking about when I say that. But there's multiple types. We have, the Clouds and Travises of the world that come see us. But at the end of the show, there is binder buyers. So Josh, when I take binders, my plan is they're not coming back on me. At all. Like that, I don't want to take anything in a binder that is coming back at me at all. So literally take the whole binder and everything. So I do have someone that for the most part is at every single show. They will come make me an offer on the binder when I'm done. So that we have kind of that agreement. I'll send them the binders every single time. It's for him basically. But he allows me to sell up until Sunday night to where I can get the most bang for the buck out of those binders.
I just want to ask, is it who I think it is?
It's you might have met him. I'll message you. I don't want to put
Yeah,
his name
message
out
me
there.
afterwards. I want to know if it is who I think it is. Does he live in Florida?
No.
Okay, it's not who I think it is. You don't have to message me. It's fine. I just want to know
Okay.
if it was the person I thought it was, and it's not. So, okay.
By the way, so now to jump into like relationship building. Um, for example, if I'm walking around and I see where I'll take a look at your stuff and what you have. I'll see, if I see retro there, Mr. Walrus, Pongo, whatever, if I see them there, I want to see take an eye and take a look at what they have and what they're selling because typically it's going to be a little bit different than what I have. If someone comes and asks me about it, I'm sending them to you. You're my friends.
Mhm.
I want you guys to be successful too. Um, I, I I think the last show I sent a lot of people to Master Set Games just because I knew what he had. He's big into ponchos, so it's like if you want ponchos, he's your man. He's got a ton of them.
Yeah,
Go over
and you
there.
got a million people asking about those, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Or like DNA, my buddy Brad was next to me at Fort Worth. It's like, here, they'll have this. So I'm trying to divert those potential buyers so that I know they've already basically said to me, hey, I'm interested in this. I want this. So if I can find someone and line them up, like I just want to do my friends, a solid. And I think
Yeah,
it's really important.
it's for shows in person, like we were kind of mentioning in the beginning, like our first shows were made a lot easier because we had friends along for it. So like networking with people in the hobby, even if you've never met a lot of people in the hobby, even if you spend time in the chat, a lot of the people in the hobby are very, very friendly, and they're very, very willing to, like, you already have a lot in common. Let's just be real. Like you're already in 20 minutes, 30 minutes into like a Pokemon investing collecticon like live chat. So for the most part, the people who are here together have a lot of the same interests. So like at a collecticon where there's already shared interests, you're all there for the same reason, you can really bond pretty easily, I've found, with most people you walk up to. So I would definitely recommend just making friends because it helps make you feel better when you're around people you trust. Even if you walk up, you don't know anyone from these chats, and it's your first ever collecticon, you've never interacted in a live stream, the table next to you, the person who with the table next to you, say hello to them. They are going to be your ally. Like this, I did a show this weekend, and I didn't know anyone in the show, a local show that I did, not a single person. But the person next to me, they were my friends at the end of the show, because like you want to know what your neighbors are selling for two reasons. You want to know what they're selling for competition reasons, to know what if your prices are going to kind of mesh against each other, you're going to be competing for customers. But you also want to know who your neighbors are so that you can kind of lean on them a little bit and they can lean on you. Like if you need to go step away, I do a lot of shows just by myself. Like I go and fly somewhere, I'm alone, I do the table, and if I need to step away from the table, it helps to have someone there who maybe you don't know too well, but they can at least make sure someone doesn't just pick up your whole case and walk away with it. So networking, one of the most, of course, oversaid but underused utilities. And another thing, like if you know people, there could be a situation like we had in Fort Worth where your cases just somehow don't, they disappear. A lot of cases, they didn't have enough cases for everyone at the show in Fort Worth, so there was a lot of like issues with people getting their display cases that you rent. And so like the only reason that I was able to get a display case at all, I would have had none. I went from having two to none, was because I knew old school Pokemon, and I went to over that section. I said, "Hey Nick, I don't know if you have an extra case anywhere or anyone know anyone with one, if you could hook it up, but I would really appreciate it if I could, rent one from you if you have an extra." He's like, "Oh, sure, no problem. I've got an extra one. What, you need two?" And I was like, "Oh, no, dude, just one. Thank you. You're a lifesaver." And, he's just hooked it up. So it's just as simple as kind of knowing someone. So I know not everyone can really do that, but when you do start knowing people, you start to reap those benefits. And then, like, it really does make the anxiety of going to a new place and a new city seem so much less. You can be more excited than anxious about it.
Yeah,
Um,
I bet he just pulled it out of his back pocket too, like, oh, here it is.
oh, I was just ready
Please
for it,
take it.
Josh.
Yeah.
No big deal.
Don't even pull it off the table.
Yeah, I mean, the man's a lifesaver. Like, honestly, if there's anyone that you want to know at Collecticon, in my opinion, it's old school Pokemon. Now he's taking a huge step back because he's a huge online seller. He's going all eBay Live, and you may not see him at as many Collecticons as he used, but the man used to be an absolute beast, and he probably still is going. He says he's going to take a step back, but I'll believe that when I see it, Ray. I
He'll
will
go.
believe that when I see it,
He's an
because,
animal.
yeah,
He'll go. He can't help it.
he can't help himself. So, but you definitely want to make friends with someone like that, someone who's been around a lot, because they can give you tips and tricks. Come up to us, come up to me. I'll have this Magikarp hat. If we've never met before, we've never talked before, I promise you, I will talk your ear off. And I appreciate you coming up. So if you're feeling like shy, don't. Same thing. I'm sure Ray will, only bite a little bit if you come up to his station or whatever. But no, that being said, though, I do want to say something that if you are going to Collecticon to sell, that maybe you don't need to hear this, but maybe you do. Put your phone away when you're at Collecticon. Like, I also personally don't like to see people sitting down and leaning back at their station at Collecticon when selling, because you're there for a short amount of time, right? And this is one of my pet peeves is like I'll see a table with nobody coming up to it and they'll just be sitting back on their phone like this, and the people are walking right by, but there's people, they're just not stopping, and the person's getting more discouraged and just getting kind of out of it in their head on their phone as the day goes on, when all they have to do is just stand up and make eye contact with anyone walking by and say, hey, how's it going? Do you like Pokemon? Do you like sports? Do you like Marvel? What are you selling? And come on over. And, they might say no. They might just walk by and say, don't talk to me. But they're expecting you to do that to them. So, like, it's not like nobody looks weird at the seller for hawking their goods at a Collecticon. So, like, I highly recommend try to get a little bit out of your shell. I know it's easier said than done. Like, I was a speech and debate kid growing up. So, like, I was always public speaking, even in high school, So it was never an issue for me to do that. And I totally get it if it's a problem. But if you're going to go and try to sell in person, one of the biggest assets to yourself that you're selling is you, and you can control your inventory, you can control what you bring, but you control if people come up to you if you don't look approachable. So try to be approachable, try not to be sitting back in the chair leaning back on your phone. That would be something that I highly recommend. Just stand up, be engaging, and you'll get people coming over to your table, right?
Well, I would agree with you. However, there is one thing that I picked up, and I hope DNA doesn't hate me for saying this, but I learned something off of him from the last Collecticon that I always wondered, like, how am I going to do this? Because I'm the guy, I got the Sharpie in my hand. I'll probably have this Sharpie with me at Collecticon. And when I'm pricing out some cards, I'm usually writing it down and then, doing the math and all that kind of stuff. Um, who would have known you could just use your phone in the notes section and just kind of price out everything that you have and uh, right. And then more importantly, not only just maybe pricing out and using the calculator on it, but DNA jots down everything that he purchases and the price he purchases it for, which
Yeah,
is really, really smart because like
you forget.
you, because I watched your last video where you got all you sent back, got all your return back from basically all your submissions from Fort Worth.
Mm-hmm.
Did you remember everything you paid for, all that stuff?
There were a
Because
few things
I
I had to
certainly
like
didn't.
really dig deep for. As you could tell with some of the prices, they were a little bit wiggly. The pricings were a little bit weird on some of them. I paid probably close to what I said I paid, but I didn't write it all down. You're so right. You will forget and it'll be hazy, and it's good to have that information for sure.
So yeah, I picked that up from DNA, and I was like, you smart son of a bitch. And so in the future now, I'm either going to be just writing it, like if I get a raw card that's pretty expensive, I'm just going to write it directly on the top loader, um, or put it in my phone.
Yeah, and I think that having a phone is a benefit. And I didn't mean to like say
I know
don't
what
use
you
your
I
phone.
know what you
Yeah,
meant by the way, but
right, right.
I
Anyone
wanted to throw
listening,
in a positive thing for why you should
yes,
be using
your
your
phone
phone.
can be a huge and that's what the other member of the podcast, Flex Gods, he always says he takes pictures. He doesn't jot it down or do any like writing a note. He literally just snaps a quick picture. He puts it on the table, puts what they're trading, what he's trading, and just takes it. And then at the end, he goes through it. And I think that's like a quick and really easy and a good way to do it. I've never been good about documenting things like that though, because I actually do have typically 2 to 3 people at my table at a time. So like
It's hard.
for me to sit there and like have the time to like spend the time on one person and like write it down, I don't know, I just typically don't.
It's
So
really,
I
especially
think it is good advice. I still don't take that advice is one of the things I'm saying.
especially when the wave hits you, because that's sometimes how this can be, guys, is like, geez, at Fort Worth, and I forget where I couldn't even come see you where you were at. But if it was anything like where we were at, dude, it was dead for like the first 2 hours, and then the wave of people from the entrance came over, and then it was nonstop. You're negotiating, talking with people for 4 or 5 hours straight.
Yeah, I feel like
Right,
when
Eddie?
I'm at when I'm Yeah, you like that. When I'm actually at the Collecticon, like the Collecticon proper and selling, I don't leave my table really, and I don't see any of my friends really who are selling either, and I don't walk around either. I spend maybe the first hour like walking around after I've set up. When it's kind of dead, I'll walk around, do a lap just to see what's there. But to be honest, I've been to so many of these Collecticons, I've been to so many of these conventions that I see all the same people. You really are hanging out after the convention at the after parties, the hotels, the trade nights, the Airbnbs, whatever. But it is definitely, I think, it's one of those things I don't worry about not seeing people at the convention. I see all my customers at the convention, all the people who are buying and the convention goers. But then I see my friends afterwards. So like that's I guess a piece of advice I might give is like not to worry so much about like at the convention, like trying to have a great time. I think you'll have a good time regardless. But maybe I'm just crazy and I like selling. So I do want to get in a little bit of some of these questions if there are some. I know there's a lot of trolls in here, and I love you trolls. So thanks for coming. We appreciate all the good trolls in the Pokemon community. But let's see who's in here, guys. I see we got Nostalgianomics, Thrifty, Retro, Mr. Walrus. Let's go, guys. Ponga, thank you so much for being here. E Unit, what's up, guys? Yeah, we definitely are. I think personally I'm going to be moving into more live selling, so like I'm excited coming up. I'm really jealous about this coming up Kansas City Collecticon. I know that me and Retro joke about it on our podcast, and I was dead serious. It wasn't really a joke. I thought that is Kansas City going to be a little slow, but like after how much success that I've been having at live selling and just how much fun I have with it, and thinking about it, like I'm a little bit jealous about like Kansas City. Not so much Kansas City, more so than I am Charlotte, because I am considering doing Charlotte because I just saw that North Carolina is actually the best state in the entire union to do business in right now. So like they're doing a lot of push for like technology and like they're lowering their taxes and stuff. So like I feel like it might be a sleeper and I was being overly negative on it. So I may possibly try to sneak into Charlotte, possibly.
What I would say
But
is this. If it was going to be the convention center that we went to for my first, Collecticon, I would be like, I wouldn't make that necessarily a priority. But if you look at the convention center where they're having it now, it's more like in downtown section. It looks a lot nicer, and it looks like it's a nice area of down. Like Charlotte's a cool city. You should make it for sure.
I just like barbecue and I'm a foodie, so like I've never been to that part of the country. So that alone might make me possibly think I might want to spend a weekend out there. So I don't know. We're gonna try to work it in. But yeah, chat, if you do have any questions for us, if you have anything coming up, who's in the chat that's never vended at a Collecticon that's going to be doing their first show, maybe not Kansas, but maybe it's like Long Beach or maybe it's Charlotte. I want to know, are any of you guys doing your first time vending? And if so, like, what are you going to be bringing? Because uh, are you still going to be doing your same sort of plan? Have you changed anything about your plan up? Because I don't think we've really gone over your strategy for like what you're doing with this Kansas City. I think we kind of got off track, but are
No,
you
it's
still
okay.
doing binders and raw and like some graded, or are you going to be changing up a strategy at all?
Um, so I have three binders. In this case, I went the lazy way a little bit with these binders. They're all dollar binders. So I have three 360 card binders. So do the math. That's roughly what I'm hoping to sell them for. Usually I would price each one out like that I was talking about, but I didn't have the raw accumulated for, a special binder this time. The focus is going to be hopefully selling a lot more slabs. I just did get the submission return back. I don't know if you watched the video or not, but um, I did get slapped by PSA like you did on several cards. Um, they're grading tougher. I don't know I think I heard that connotation in your voice in your last video when you,
I
but
personally don't think they're grading tougher or less tough. I just think that the grader I got was grading a little tougher. So you're probably hearing a little bit of that. I don't know. Like, I'm not one that thinks that PSA changes, except for pack rating. The pack rating thing is like, without a doubt, they've changed their whole like grading standards recently. It was very recently. But other than that, I think that they've been pretty consistent ever since I've been watching. Like, I see some 200, two certs even. I saw a one cert. I had an Entei, a Black Star promo Entei one cert. It was the oldest Pokemon graded card I ever saw, the weirdest PSA slab ever. And that thing looked fine. It looked like a 10, It wasn't like
yeah,
a weak 10 or anything. So I think the cards are just it's dependent on the
Hey,
grader's day, just like it's
I'm
always
not,
been, you
yeah,
know?
I'm not trying to start any pitchfork fire riots or anything, because usually PSAs, I mean, usually I'm getting between a 75 and 85% 10 rate. I'm pretty good at, spotting some of these cards. This one that I had was a like 50% rate, man. That's not, um,
I was at 45%. So that was my exact rate. And my last sub that I just did, now mind you, my last sub was entirely English, and they were all the birds promos from the tens of like the Crown Zenith tens, heavily picked through to be like the best ones I could find. And I got like a 45% on that one too. So it was rough, like the 10 rate on English cards. And that's one thing that like I talk about a lot is English is hard to grade, but also I need to be a better pre-grader. But the connotation you might have been hearing also was just maybe me beating myself up for sending some things, being a little bit, the meme,
sure.
you lose if you don't make, you can't get a weak PSA 10 if you only send strong cards in. And to me, I was thinking about this the other day. Like, I get more joy out of seeing a really weak PSA 10 and people posting about it on Facebook. Like, why is this a 10? And people are just like, that's PSA to me. That looks good to me. I get more joy out of those weak 10s than I do out of seeing like a strong 10 or whatever. Because I'm like, PSA, you are doing us a favor. I love you, buddy. PSA, you're doing us a good one here.
You also get more joy out of PSA ones too, because you're a damn animal and a hyena, and
Well,
someone
yes.
who's a crazy person who actually made me quite a bit of money when I sent a uh, that Charizard off, the secret Charizard you told me to send. So thank you. That got a
I,
PSA one, and
I
yeah,
try. I try my best to help people. Like, I mean, I'm in the business of making money in Pokemon. I love this hobby. It's fun for me as well, but I have to try to make money from it so I can keep doing it. So like it's really important to me to do that. So I try to share some of those things. Obviously, I'm not going to try to share all of my plays, but
give me them all.
a PSA 1 is not anything that's like it's not a revolutionary thing,
No,
everyone knows. It's just it's a funny meme though. But yeah, so that's part of my strategy though. The PSA 1 thing, it goes into my strategy. My strategy personally when I walk into a Collecticon, I go to a different city usually. It's not the same place, same, building every time. It's a different place. Sometimes I've been there, sometimes I've not. But I never know who's going to be walking in front of me. I don't know what's going to be popping off or hot in the market or what people want. And even if it is hot in the market, I don't know if I'm going to want to sell it for the price that it's going for. So instead of thinking about every time doing something different, I have sort of a formula that I use. And it's typically just, it's not anything special. I just bring everything. I literally try to bring a smorgasbord of a little bit of everything. So I have my 2 cases. I bring modern booster packs because I feel like people sometimes want to add a booster pack, or maybe you're $5 away from a $20 purchase and you're 15, you just want to add a $5 pack. Having a booster pack there to make that sale really makes making change. And kids walking by, it gets them to gravitate over and grab a pack, and then their parents, they're like, okay, well, I'm here now, so now I have to look at what you got. So then you get the sale from the kid from the booster pack, and then you get the sale from the parent who's looking at your different things. So like my strategy has always been to bring different variety of things. I know people like mystery packs, so I've been very successful making mystery bags or mystery packs or boxes, whatever, before the convention, and sort of going in with some of those as well. So like having packs, slabs, lower priced items with some higher priced items for, like we talked about, eye candy, and having something that draws you apart from the crowd or sets you aside, makes you stand out, whether it's your beautiful shining face and your personality in a big orange Magikarp hat, or it's a big banner that you put up that you order for $100 online, which I've seen people do, and you have a big red and white banner that says your name and people can see you buy, sell, and trade. Or it's just your whole section is, it's all lit up with you built one of those cage match things and you've got like spotlights and stuff. And I don't recommend doing all that right away on your first convention. This is like a beginner's thing, but there are people who build out their whole section. And so have you ever considered actually building like a shelf behind your table and
Oh,
bringing more sealed product?
I did it. I did it in Orlando. I bought the
Okay,
shelf.
and how'd that work out
Um,
for you? Because that's something I've always considered but never done.
um, So for that one, because I could drive to it, it's not something I would say. I don't know if I'd plan on going, on a trip and trying to bring racks or just go rent them somewhere before a show, unless you have the insane amount of inventory to do that. Um, I mean, I sold a few things off my shelf that I had back there. I mean, it wasn't anything crazy, but yeah. To answer your same question that you had from earlier, I'm bringing the same thing that you just talked about. I'm bringing booster packs. I'm bringing some sealed booster boxes. I'm more of a Japanese collector, so I'm bringing a couple Dream League boxes to see if they'll move. Binders and slabs anywhere between that $50 to $250 range. Um, but yeah, just hopefully setting it up and having a nice, welcoming environment. I mean, I completely understand where you're coming from when you say that too, because you just never know. I mean, when you want to close a deal, because hopefully, you're always winning. That's kind of one of the goals when you're there. You may not win every single time, by the way, but hopefully you're always winning. Whether it's, I don't know, someone comes up and has some alt art that you may want. Well, if they come and pull 6 or 7 cards out of your raw binder for that alt art you want, you just won, right? It's like in fantasy football, you want the one good player, not the 3 or 4 mediocre players, right? If that's what they want for a trade, then that's fine as long as the values. I always try to meet that value threshold. I'm not saying rip people off, but if that's what they want, that's what they want.
No, you need to buy lower than market price when you're at
Yes.
collecticons because you have travel costs, you have table costs, and you have costs of setting up, you have costs of making inventory. You have literally all these extra costs that the buyer isn't aware of and they don't care about. So in order to combat that secondary extra cost, you literally have to account for that. You have to sell for some things a little more, you have to buy things for cheaper, because they're not paying fees either when they're selling it. So if you walk into a Collecticon and sell someone a alternate art sell a BV, that's like a $25 card, $30 card on TCG Player. You're gonna have to ship it, and you're gonna have to pay 15, 10 or 15% fees. That's $3, $4, or whatever. So you don't buy that Celebi at $25 near mint. You buy it at $20, and you buy a bunch of other cards, and you see if they'll knock it down to 15 if you buy enough. And you get your buy price as low as you can because you're not trying to be a scumbag. You're not trying to like rip people off or whatever, but you have literal buy costs, and you have in that card you buy, it's not always going to 10. Like I had a stack of cards I bought at Collecticon, and I didn't have all the time in the world to go over every card I bought. I had a quick amount of time to look at every card, but you're not going to like take every card out of every penny sleever and top loader it's handed to you and look at all the corners. I gave it a quick look. A couple of them aren't going to 10, they're going to 9. And I bought them at near mint price, but that's just one of those things. I'll sell them at near mint price, at full near mint price at the next collectathon. So that's sort of what you do. You rotate that inventory when you do take the L's, and you kind of rotate it out, and you give it to another binder collector who doesn't care if it's going to get a 9. They're just going to put it in a binder anyway. So
And one of the goals that I hopefully get to, and this isn't going to be necessarily advice for someone who's just starting, like what you're trying to focus this on, but this is somewhere to where you can really allow yourself to expand. But one of my goals now is not to just only be selling at a collecticon, but to be buying a lot more. But what I
mhm.
mean is like go in with the focus of a collecticon to where my focus is now, okay, I'm coming here to buy. I'm not coming
Yeah,
here to sell. Right?
yeah,
So that's
big time.
once you can get to that point, and hopefully you might have someone with you that's maybe still at your cases and selling for you. Hopefully you get to that point to where you can pay someone to do that while you're walking around and buying. That's
Well,
really
let me stop you real quick. When you say you're buying, do you mean you're walking around and buying at the vendors?
that's a goal. Yes, absolutely.
Wow, okay, because that's something I've never had success with, and I've tried a little bit, but it's not my first forte. I have so much just walk up to my
Sure.
table
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
I don't feel like I ever would want to go and actually buy out because it would just be weird. I don't know. I thought you meant like buying as in when people come to the table and buying. So you mean actually
No,
going and okay,
yeah. I
that's
mean,
interesting.
Brad next to me pulled a 2016 sealed Champions Festival pack.
From a
Uh,
vendor?
Yeah, from a vendor. He walked away. He's like, "Hey, can you watch this for 10 minutes?" He walked away to go to the bathroom. He saw it on the way to the bathroom, and he came back with it in his hands. And he's like, "I just bought this. I forget the price that what he paid for. I wouldn't say what it
Right.
is anyhow,
It
but
doesn't matter, yeah.
it
It
doesn't
was
matter.
good
But
enough
the
for
point
him,
is,
so
but I mean, it was a good deal. It was actually he just bought. He found a player. bought it off a player, and was happy about it. The
Yeah, I
point
need to
is,
spend more time.
there there's deals there, Josh. The point is how many times do you get to go walk around and pick from a ton of different stuff that people are going to have there? And like you
Yeah.
said earlier, look at the cards that you're bringing home. Like I don't have to sit there and look at, you know, at Gballer 99's eBay listing and get hopefully ask for 19 more pictures because they decided to take a picture from like a top of a balcony all the way to the second floor lower end of like on a mattress or something, right? I mean, just the pictures are terrible sometimes. So you have to take advantage of that moment in time where you're there and actually able to look at the cards.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest benefits to CollectCon, and this is something I didn't know when I went to like um my first Long Beach CollectCon. I went there just kind of looking around. I wasn't gonna buy a bunch. I had Disney like a couple days after, and I wasn't selling anything, so I wasn't in the buying mode. And so I was seeing a couple of things, but it wasn't like my forte. I went into that mode when I was vending in Denver, and I saw how much walked up to the table. I was like, oh, things just walk up to you. They just come to you, and you pay 10, 15%, 20% less than market, and you just walk away with the ones you want, and you get to be picky and choosy about a lot of it too. So one of the things that I always would do when people would come up is they would always come up, they'd say, hey, are you willing to like trade? And it was almost like they're worried about being turned down because like people be like, no, I don't trade no one. Get out of here with that. We sell only. I'm like, what kind of seller are you if you're doing that? Because I would always just respond, and my go-to response was like, absolutely, I trade as long as you're okay with me being a little picky because I'm picky with what I pick out. But if you're cool with that, absolutely. Look at my case and I'll look at what you got and let's see if we can make a trade. Because I will every time, 10 out of 10, if I have an item in my case that's not necessarily moving, it's been there for a while, maybe it's something I priced a little higher and it's just kind of sitting and I haven't had the chance to lower the price yet. If someone wants to do a trade and they see that, they're not going to necessarily like they're not going to really negotiate as much. That's going to kind of make the value out with what it's marked. And then we set our prices based on what is wanted out of the trade, and then you essentially make a deal and negotiate, and you can work out with something that works for both people, where I'm moving a slab that's not so liquid that I didn't necessarily have a plan to move before, and suddenly I'm trading for something that is liquid that I can then grade, have for future inventory, and move much quicker because I have experience with it. And it's a win-win for everyone in those situations, and they don't have to use cash. They can just kind of trade what they have and walk away with a win for them.
And yeah,
Speaking
and you had
of
said one of my key pieces of advice that I was going to make sure I said too, which is
okay, what's that?
always, 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 always be buying, trading into liquid.
Don't ever say no. Like I still
Sure,
that advice. I know that advice, and I still let things walk away from me because I'm busy. Because
sure.
I haven't sold enough in that particular hour, and I'm thinking like I don't. I just bought a bunch. I don't want to buy more right now. I want to sell a little more. Like I don't even follow my own advice, but that is great advice. And if you can, I would highly recommend to say yes to as much as you can, as long as it makes sense, right? You don't want to, one of my biggest things is like, it breaks my heart when kids come to the table and ask to trade because like I will look at their stuff, but I have to be really quick. I do it not to actually look at it. I do it to make them feel good about it, not
Yeah,
because I don't want to just blow them off and say, no, get out of here, kid. But 9 times out of 10, when a kid comes to the table with a binder, with their cards directly in the binder, not in a penny sleeve, they pulled it with their friends at school, traded with it. I'll look at the cards because I want to include them in the hobby. I want them to get a good experience. I'll maybe trade them like a $2 or $3 card that I see in there for like a booster pack, possibly. But I'm usually just going to turn those kids away because I know they're already scratched up, they're already dented. It really depends on the person who's coming up. And I typically don't like trading with little kids so much. So, like, you saw the meme. There's a lot of trade up challenges, but there's a lot of kids at Collecticons too, though. And honestly, I don't want this to come across like it's anti-kid at all because it's the opposite. I think that kids are the strongest part about Pokemon. And if we didn't have the kids in the hobby with their parents dragging their parents around, and the parents like it too, but the kids are getting their parents into it, really, it would be nowhere. So it is not that at all. It's just when you're trading and when you have limited time, I oftentimes will typically say no to, little binders with dirt stains and pieces of sand and what have you, and lollipop or whatever. residue.
I know you anyhow. I know your personality. There's no chance in hell that you're not leaving a weekend without taking care of some kid that and making some kid's day while you're there. I know I do it. I probably do it with multiple kids. You're probably gonna do it yourself, but you have to understand you can't do it with every single one that's there. And you'll identify that kid as he comes up to the table because he's probably a little bit more innocent. You know, he's not trying to get your $1,000 Charizard card
I
for
like the
his.
shark kids though. I appreciate the
Oh,
hustlers too
you
though.
like the hustler? I mean, I don't mind
I
them.
may not actually like fall for it, but I respect it. You know what I mean?
Sure, okay. I do appreciate that as well. But you hear what I'm saying when I said when I'm saying basically, I'm sure there's some kids that you're taking care of by you that weekend, and it just can't be everyone is what I'm ultimately trying to say.
Yeah, no, and that's definitely true. Like honestly, I think that like all the joking aside about trade up challenges and like kids or whatever, the strength that I find in Pokemon versus like Magic the Gathering, sports card shows, all these other types of collectibles, those collectibles feel like a bunch of 30, 40-year-old like pot-bellied, beer drinking, like older, kind of dying men who are in it, and it just doesn't feel as good as like all the youth and all the excitement of all the children and families, and like and their families are with it, their parents are collecting with them. It just feels more vibrant, the hobby does, when the kids are involved than when they're not. So like that's definitely how I feel about that. But I do want to get to some of the questions here because this one's been up on the screen for a while, and I think it's a really good question because it's been kind of what we've been talking about a little bit here, back and forth, strategy wise. But I want to know what you think about this. Leaf Green Goblin says, when comparing all collecticons you've both been to, do you guys think that slabs or raw do better? And I think that's a really good question. You're gonna get a weird answer out of me, so I want to let you go first. But
Um, to take a second here to really think about your question and make sure I'm answering it correctly, I wouldn't compare them, Leaf Green Goblin, sir. What I mean by that is you have people who are coming there to buy raw, whether they're trying to source in your bulk that you may have brought, like my binders, for example, or people who just may want to trade with you. And you have people that just may want to come buy that one-off slab or buy a whole bunch of slabs from you. I market but to all of them if I can. So some of these collecticons will be fortunate enough, and we may have some uh, large buyouts in some of our slabs. I absolutely will have a whole bunch of cards that I know that they like that will serve their audience and say, hey, look, I have this stored for you. Take a look. You may want this. And it may be a stack of like 20 full art Charizards that I know I set aside for that person that I can't possibly put in the case. Um, so to compensate which one does better, I really can't answer the question for you. Well, what I can tell you is every single one of my collecticons that I did take raw binders, all my raw binders are gone from that collecticon. Not
yeah,
all
I was
my
gonna answer yes.
not all
Yeah.
my not all my slabs left. However, I also wouldn't necessarily expect that either, right?
Okay.
Because like if I have a PSA 7 Trubbish, who the hell wants it anyhow, right? Besides
But why'd
me.
you bring it, right? So
Yeah.
you learned a lesson with that too. So you kind of actually answered in a way that I think is really smart because I kind of agree with most of what you said, but I'll try to phrase it in a little bit of a different way because I kind of feel the same way, but at the same time, I'll be a little more definitive about it. I actually think, and because you said this, but I'll double down. I think that raw always moves. Like if you price the raw well and you price it to the point where, and it's shiny stuff and it's cool Pokemon, whatever it is, it's if you curate your raw inventory and actually price it well, I think there's more of a market for raw in general because, like you said, I never come home with raw stuff. Like I brought a big old thing of like full of raw to sell in top loaders in addition to my graded, and I brought a binder. I did everything. My strategy with binders is anything under $20 goes in the binder, and then anything over $20 goes in a graded, a hard semi rigid, so with the price right on it. So then people can look at it and see how they would want to grade it potentially. So that's my particular strategy, but everyone's gonna have a different philosophy. I have more trust. I'm more trust with people. I'm more hands-on. Like if I hand someone a stack of top loaders that I know are all $20 or more and they're all gradables, I'm watching them as they're rifling through it, and they've stood at my table for a minute, and I have it behind my table, and I'm like, hey, you want to see the good stuff? I see them flipping through the binder. I'm like, hey, you want to see the good stuff? And then I bring out from behind the table and I show like this the case of like the more expensive stuff, and that makes them feel special. And that's just a sales tactic, by the way, too. Is like you bring someone in for like the everything. Everyone wants to feel special. Okay, like this is something I learned selling just whatever, insert, cards, wine, cards, wine, cars, whatever you sell, this applies to it. The customer wants to feel special. And if you provide them with the experience of feeling special just by having the good stuff behind the counter, and when you're interacting with them, you bring it out, they're not just going to walk by and just shuffle through it. They're going to say, oh, the good stuff. Okay, sure. Yeah, let me see. And they'll look at it and they have in their head, that's the good stuff already. And so they're going to look through it and they think, no, not everyone's seeing this. All these other guys walking by, they're just seeing the binder. I'm seeing the good stuff. So like you already made a connection that way. So here's a little free sales tactic for you, but always keep a little extra sauce behind the scenes so that when you have a real buyer on the hook, you can show them. Everyone wants to see how the sausage is made. Okay. My biggest sales tactic when I worked at a winery, the best thing I could do was I could bring someone to the back where the wine was made and show them the whole process of like, how it's made kind of thing. And like, that was when I had a buyer on the line and I knew they're going to buy $1,000+ with me. It's no skin off my back to just say, hey, let's go back to the back and check some stuff out and sell them a more expensive bottle. So same, I would recommend if you are a salesman at all, if you feel confident in your ability of potentially interacting with someone, maybe implement some maybe advanced sales tactics to move your wares a little bit too.
Well, I could tell you one thing that and how I came up with some of this because at the end of the day, this is all like, sorry, I just used at the end of the day, Dan style. But this is like marketing, right? So how I learned how to market some of my stuff in my case is by going to a jewelry store. When you go to a jewelry store and you see all those beautiful rings in the cases and they have all the lights cascading down and all those brilliant diamonds that are reflecting absolutely everywhere, if I could, I would put LED strips in every one of my cases so that all the light could shine on all the foil patterns and you can really see it pop, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, when you travel, it's kind of really difficult to do because you're renting cases. But for home cases, I'm sooner or later going to probably put some LED strips in there with some batteries attached to it. So you just have that light coming from all over the place. You got to think like that. Make it look different. And then obviously putting stuff in there that is just going to help the consumer, like and putting labels on slabs that an 80-year-old could read from 50 feet away and that are, colorblind labeled slabs. He has sleeves that he has everything, man. It's crazy. Did you see
I
the
really
size?
like the
Have you seen the
uniform
size of his
Dan
digits?
has, because that's what you're talking about. It's like his setup is really uniform and everything, but it's also kind of boring too, to be honest.
Oh,
So
Dan is boring. He's an engineer.
no. But like he may that may be his brand, but like he has a lot to offer, and I think he could stand out maybe. So like I think he's got it really dialed in really well. But the one thing I would advise maybe is just something to stand out, like a big banner. I don't know, something, because if you're not going to be the one yelling, which I know he's not going to be the one yelling, you can have the banner yelling for you. So that's just one small little piece of advice because I know Dan can take it, but that would be the only thing because his section is really good. It's really organized, but it's a little bit kind of boring at the same time, just kind of.
If you looked in his case, you would see something like this, just this big on a slab. His labels are just massive.
You can see it from across the convention. He wants
Yes,
the Gary to be able to see it without his
yes,
glasses on from the other side of the convention. And it's going to be
and
priced 20% under too, just to spite everyone, because
yep,
because Dan loves it. He loves to say he's not going to sell it for less, but then he gets to the convention and sells it for way less than what it's worth.
oh, dude,
I saw
he's
that
the
man
easiest one to.
sell. What was he? What did he sell to Green Shiz? The $400 base set the Japanese base set thing, that thing was like $600 at the time. He's like, I don't know, $400 is like close to what I got it for. I must have bought it 6 years ago.
Guys, if you want a great deal, go to Dan's table, claim you're his friend, act like you like him a little bit, and then you can just undercut him by like $300.
20%, 30%
So
off. He'll
super
never do
easy.
it on eBay. In person, he's the biggest softie in the world.
He has no idea
Sorry,
what he's
Dan.
doing.
Sorry, Dan. No, I'm just kidding. He'll only get things for 20% over at Dan's table. There you go, buddy. I'm helping you out there. No one's gonna get a deal at Dan's table. All
You're
right.
so kind.
This is all a joke. It's all a big hoax to try to get him some. This man doesn't sell. We need to help get him some business. It's all a hoax to get Dan a little bit more because he's getting discouraged by the whole thing. We
He's
don't
one
want
of
him to be.
he's one of the brokest PokeTubers in the hobby for sure.
Okay, but Dan being in the comments here, he actually brought up a good point. I wanted to bring up his comment and sort of lean into it a little bit because I do think that he's right about that. I had a seller at this show I recently went to, another Pokemon seller. It was a sports show mostly, and he came up to my table. He's like, "Hey man, did you do well? Did you do okay at the thing?" I was like, "Yeah, it's cool." He's like, "Oh man, I did horrible. Like I didn't even get my table cost back." And I was like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah, like I don't know, everyone's here for sports." And that strictly wasn't the case. And so he's like, will you come to my table and like see what I could like, and without I feel bad about this because if the dude's watching, I didn't mean to be disrespectful. It's just didn't have a lot of time. Without blinking an eye, I've been watching too much Daily Refinement. The first thing I said to him, I said, "Lower your prices." I didn't go to his case. I said, "Oh, you just gotta lower your prices. Your stuff will sell." I was like, "Lower your prices, or I don't know, just it'll sell." And he literally blinked. He's like, "I thought I priced it." I was like, "Well, I don't know. If it was priced low, people would buy it." So that's it is. There's no secret. There's not a secret formula, but there is a small secret. I would say the secret is just price things aggressively if you want to sell it. Like if you're okay with not selling something and you're going to be okay with like walking away with what you brought and waiting until it gains in value and then selling it then, like that's fine. But like if you want to make a sale, sometimes you have to just lower the price a little bit. So Dan was being he's kind of being a little tongue in cheek there, but he's right. And I think that is sort of a bit of a secret is just price lower. That's the best way to get your stuff to
That
sell.
and there also it really isn't a magic formula with knowing the market. There's no magic to it. You have to know, what's kind of hot right now and what to put out there, right? Like, I'm sorry to say, and this I don't want to. I hate doing this, but I'm not going to throw a ton of vintage out at Kansas City Collecticon. I'm not saying that I won't have it. However, I will be pushing a bit more of the modern, specifically Japanese, at Kansas City Collecticon because it's kind of what's hot right now, is it not?
You got to lean into what's hot. So that's one thing that's also important is not to go against the flow. Like shout out to Retrospects because we're going to go into his question here soon, but I'm going to give him, he can also take the heat a little bit, but Retro learned this very, very innately at I think it was the last Collecticon we went. He brought a bunch of, maybe it wasn't the last one, but it was Orlando. He brought a bunch of like Dragon Ball Z and a lot of like Mario cards and like IPs that weren't Pokemon, that were not modern, but were really cool. I mean, they're popular IPs, but they weren't things that people knew about as much. And you would think that would be a great thing to sell at something like Collecticon, because it is, all these people like the same things, right? It's from the same buyer pool. So you're walking by, if it's priced well. But like the problem I think was that essentially it was too niche. So like he was leaning into what he was doing and his niche, but he wasn't leaning into what the market wanted as much at that time. And I think that he did do good at that convention because he had a buyout come through and he was able to sell some of his Japanese slabs and stuff. But I think that he probably learned that he's not going to bring all those niche things as much. Maybe he'll bring some of them just to have some different things, but it's all about leaning into what's selling. So like at the next convention, I'm going to be bringing a lot of tag team stuff, a lot of Japanese stuff. It's not, I don't love this stuff. I do love it. I love tag team, and I'm okay with Japanese cards, but I'm more of an English collector. But the market loves it, and so that's sort of what I lean into. So if you don't have that inventory, though, you can still do well, though. Like I don't think you only have to have what's selling. Like I think that, like I said, I think Retro still did well with his like Dragon Ball Z and his like Final Fantasy cards. Or I know you're into Final Fantasy a little bit too, but how do you find that the niche stuff really works for you, or have you stopped bringing that niche stuff and you focus more on, like you said, what the market wants? Because I know you brought a lot of Final Fantasy at one point,
It
and
doesn't
then
work.
I'm gonna go into that question down there.
It doesn't work. And retro will know that too. I mean, because Retro and I have talked about this quite a few times, but like Final Fantasy just is a liquid. But guess what? Like, there's a part, unfortunately, I know it's crazy. I'm a scammer and a flipper, but there is part of this stuff that I actually do like. So sometimes when I put things in a case, it's because, hey, maybe I might find that one person that likes it like I do. Because sometimes when I'm walking around, I might see something from a random IP that I really like some of the stuff that he had from Mario, that I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. Do I expect it to sell when it goes in the case? No, not really. But when it does sell, it's like really sweet and you're kind of happy about it. Plus, you would be surprised. I think at Fort Worth, I was probably one of the few cases that actually had graded One Piece in it.
Hmm.
So because of that, I actually had a few people come up to me with some One Piece stuff, which I'm newly getting into One Piece. I don't know a ton about it yet. I think some of the art is amazing. But I had some people come up with some like trophy cards from One Piece, and I was like, I would love to have that, but I am not a buyer of that right now. You know what I'm saying? So,
Hmm.
it's just the niche stuff you just know going into it that you're probably not selling it, but it's cool. Peak bought a lot of Zelda, by the way, at Denver, if you remember. And
Hmm.
he didn't move a ton
It
of it. And
didn't
he
move.
knew it, and
Okay.
he knew it, but he was saying the same thing. It's like, I love it, I don't care.
And so that goes into it. Like, if you want to just kind of try to find that buyer and grow the buyer pool and like show, like, I bring my Harry Potter cards to every freaking convention. I don't think I've sold more than 2 of my graded Harry Potter cards at more than 3 or 4. Those cards have flown so many miles all over the US with me to not move, and I still bring them just because I like Harry Potter cards. They take up like one little section, little row of my case. It brings some people in that maybe because there's no other Harry Potter there. My fiance loves it, so it's like yeah, having niche stuff. It's not necessarily if you're looking for like only things that sell. I think it can possibly sell if you get the right buyer, and like there's no way you're gonna sell it if you don't try to sell it. So like it is kind of important to like if you need to you have to bring it in some cases, but at the same time you have to choose wisely what your space is going towards, because like yeah. But anyway, I do want to answer the question here because we got a couple more we'll go through. But retrospects, appreciate you coming through, buddy. Thanks for the support. What do you think that Chris Daily Refinement would say about your eBay name, Josh? We're gonna keep that a secret between you and I, Retro. Papa Chris isn't gonna ever know that, and if he does ever find out, I'm just gonna tell him I sell Loungefly bags, and that's what it's talking about. And we're gonna just lie our way into feeling better about it. But we're gonna tell everyone but Chris because Chris wouldn't understand. Okay, first of all, I love Chris, love Daily Refinement. The man bought like what was it, Vivid Voltage like cases and opened them and graded everything. Like he has no business in Pokemon. He's a great seller, but like probably not Pokemon. We're gonna keep the whole selling bags thing a little secret. But that being said, though, I will say I'm gonna make some merch for it because I think it would piss off retrospects, and I think selling bags would be a hilarious merch to have. So I think that might be in the future coming to the channel here, just to make retrospects hate it even more. It's just for him. Okay, let's see what other questions we got here. So, who am I going to see in Charlotte if I decide to go? I know Ponga was saying that they're going to be there, which is exciting. But who else is going to be in
Do
Charlotte?
you
Trying to
do you
convince me.
actually want me to read you the list because the list is absolutely. We have
Oh,
five
you have?
sections
Okay,
here.
nice. All right, let's see
We
who's
have
going to be there.
five.
Probably going to make me go. Yeah. Have
Hold
they
on,
also
let me
sold
pull it
out of
up.
tables and announced it already for all the tables, or?
Yeah, they might have a few. I don't want to put it out there too much because I don't know. I know the section that I am heading is full. So that's all
Hmm.
I can really say. But dude,
I'll
it's
have to
absolute.
after the stream go look at the spreadsheet and see what's going on with that because I might work it in depending on how it works with schedule. Because like after hearing the news talk about North Carolina being like such a hub for business, and then all this hype it's been getting, like I might go against my better judgment and still go for that sweet, well, that tangy North Carolina barbecue. Not sweet. It's not sweet specifically. It's mustard based, but
There's like 34 people that would be in the friend group that's going. So it took up five sections. So just to give you an idea of how, I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot of people.
Yeah. Okay. Let me go through the
Dan,
chat here.
Dan's answering what's left. He knows a little bit better because I know my section's full. I just don't want to speak for any of those other guys.
Oh yeah, we have 5 seconds. Are all five of those filled up? Because you're going to be seeing me after this live. Hit your DMs, Mr. Catch 'em All Collector.
I would talk to him
Yeah.
like right away.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, one single table. All right, well, you hear it here first. I think I might try to take that, folks. I don't know. Like the thing is, like I love interacting with people, and so that's the best thing about Collecticon. I think if you are just thinking about if you've never been to one, if you don't want to sell, you listen to this whole thing. You're like, I'm not intending on selling. It's just a good time. The reason I love to sell is because I'm a shameless money grabbing pokey, money Mr. Krabs. That's my favorite meme. But like I that's why I love to sell. But if you just want to go for a good time, it's such a good time. Like you can hang out for the whole weekend with a group of like-minded people, like all these different groups of like-minded people who all like the same stuff, and like you all get to just be excited together. And then you can sell things if you trade things. You don't have to sell; you can trade like so many big trades, and like people are always opening vintage packs and opening like boxes and cases of modern, and like it's just always a good time. So I would say that if you are considering, like, if you sat through this whole stream, you're like, man, I really want to sell, but I'm not sure about it. Just go to a Collecticon first, because I guess I would say you could dive into selling without ever going to a Collecticon or a convention. But I think that going and actually like walking around to one first is pretty good idea, just to see like what's good.
Make your first one you go to, make it like a sourcing collecticon. It doesn't have to be too crazy. You can get a good idea of what's going on there to know what you're going to bring maybe next time. And worst case scenario, if you're a part of what you're, a subscriber to the old card shop, you like them, go up and meet your hero. That's what I like to do.
It
I
surprises
mean,
me that people actually listen. So, yeah, they say they listen to it. Like, maybe it's the imposter syndrome a little bit, but people come up and tell me they listen to the podcast, and it does surprise me. But it is really nice to be able to meet even people. If you watch someone, like maybe it's not me, but say you watch like Jake or Dan, or maybe you're one of Ray's dedicated subscribers. Like just meeting these guys in person, they're all just like how they are on screen. Like we're all the same people, I feel like. And I think it's very rewarding to do so, especially if you have interacted at all.
mine for me, and it's unfortunate I haven't really got to talk with him too much yet, but um, and we've kind of just waved hi to each other because I know we've seen each other. But Charlie Herlocker, someone hopefully I get to sit down with pretty soon, just kind of pick his brain because I just really like about what he has to say. But the point is we get to kind of be in that same facility at times with those type of collectors and having the opportunity to sit and just pick those kind of guys' brains. I mean, it's worth the cost of admission to go to those collecticons. I mean, geez, at Fort Worth, I don't. Did you see our section at one point? I mean, we had like Gem Mint, Radar was there, Charlie
Hmm.
was there. Um, and I'm sorry for name dropping. I don't mean to be doing. That's not what. But the point is I'm being around this. I'm just listening. I'm taking this all in at this time because I'm just trying to respect the level of what's going on and say, okay,
This is like a lot of people who've had a lot of hobbying around at that point. Yeah. And like you said, just meeting people and interacting with people like Jim Mint, honestly, Zach. So I said old school Pokemon is a very like iconic person that you should know as a seller if you just want to know someone for networking. But like someone you should know as a collector who you will see at these collecticons, who's going to treat you who you've never talked to him ever in your life, and you who he is best friends with, he will treat you the exact same as a person with the same respect and dignity. Meet Zach, Jim Mint Pokemon, because that man is hilarious, and he's also just a cool guy, and he's like iconic in the hobby, and he's at all the collecticons. So like I'll give Zach, who now just recently went full time. So like if he's not at all these collecticons now that he's technically full time Pokemon, he's gonna be hearing it from not just me, but probably everyone else too. But there's a lot
did
of
he
people
really?
in the
He went full time finally.
he recently went like like full-time Pokemon. Like he left his other job or finished off with it or did whatever he was going to do, and now he's like fully in because he started that podcast too
Yeah,
recently.
I do know that, but well, congratulations and shout out Gem Mint. That's awesome. I didn't
Yeah,
know that. Yeah,
I think that had a hand in hand with why he started the podcast. He had the time then to be able
sure.
to do something like that. So it's just really good to see that, more people kind of leaning into it who probably deserve to be in it. So, and there's a lot of people like that, Gary King Pokemon, say what you will. He's been in the hobby forever. He's always at these collecticons typically. And it's worth going to meet him while he's still, able to make it and travel to all these collecticons. The man breaks his leg or his foot every other collecticon, so and he still makes it there, so he's very dedicated. So like it's if he's that dedicated, you can probably make it there too, but it's
Uh,
definitely worth it.
By the way, are we being paid by Collecticon for this live tonight? I just want to
We
know.
should,
Is this sponsored content? I just want to know, man.
I need to start saying some more negative things about it. We can talk about security issues. We can talk about some of that stuff because that is a real thing I'm hoping they deal with. Not just kidding. There's not a lot of negative. I will say though that after the last couple of Collecticons and all the heat they've been getting about like security and stuff, I really hope they step up the security. Though I will say that my first Collecticon in Long Beach, there was metal detectors, bag checks, like all of that. There's a line around the block, and it took forever to get in. But I think that a lot of the people there, like looking back, may appreciate that looking back on it. But that wasn't the case for a lot of the other Collecticons. So maybe they'll be able to deal with that a little bit, possibly, because that is one small little. It's I wouldn't say it's a negative, but it's something they could do better on for sure. I think they've done better on some of the things like the music recently though. Like they changed the music up and it's not as loud and as long and now it's at
Okay.
the end of the convention. And so like it's not breaking it up typically in the middle of the day. I feel like that was a good decision that they listened to the community on. But there's things for sure. There are things that can be improved upon, but there are things that are getting better at the same time too.
Yeah. Shout out Tone Loc.
Is he going to be at all of them? I think he's only at a couple of them.
I I think he's gonna be at Charlotte. I forget who's at Kansas City, but I just wanted to. It's just hilarious. Tone Loc is the Long Beach. You guys have Sugar Ray, right? That's
We
actually
did
something
do our Sugar Ray, and
that's
Sugar
not
Ray is
bad.
actually it's like really, really exciting to me because I love like 3 or 4 of their songs. I'm gonna be so happy the whole time they're playing.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be mad when it's like in the background Sugar Ray's playing and I'm trying to sell some bags.
Yeah, at least with Vanilla Ice and how it was last year, you would have the bass just pumping just straight into your chest and veins, and you're trying to. I mean, I actually lost a, I actually lost a deal because I told the guy I was like, dude, I can't talk to you. Like, I'm sorry, you have to come back later. I just can't take this right now. And Ice
I'm
Ice Baby was just being shilled down my throat.
I'm still mad that what's his name, Vanilla Ice, wasn't gonna be after the Orlando one. Not because I wanted to see the Vanilla Ice, but because I thought he was gonna be at all of them forever. I thought he was just locked in for CollectCon for the end of eternity, and so I got this like Vanilla Ice Pop Century card to try to get him to sign, and I was never able to get him to sign it. And I still am kind of I look at that card and I want to throw it away, but at the same time, I have a feeling he may come back to CollectCon, so I'm keeping it because I am a hoarder with that type of thing.
The thing
Um,
is I don't think it was a terrible show, dude. It's just like when you hear it 17 times or 4 or 5 times in a row, and then it's just straight up bass in your face. I mean, I sound old. I'm just gonna stop.
yeah, I like the choices on the newer Collecticons that they've been doing, not so much as the first round of Collecticons. Like nothing against Vanilla Ice. I mean, one time would have been fine, but like all of them and like, that was a little much. That's all. So I think they're doing better with that. I think they're realizing they're leaning into like their strengths. They're not necessarily focusing on the music as much because like I personally would not like it as a seller if they got a really big like Rihanna or something to be there or whatever, some big name pop singer who's going to draw a ton of crowds. I don't know what the big things are now, but I know Rihanna probably isn't even touring anymore because isn't she pregnant or something? But if they got a big artist that everyone would want to go see, like it would draw away from the card aspect of it. So like I think they need to try to balance it, and they've been doing pretty good with the balance. So
I
yeah, I
just
think
can't wait. I can't wait to listen to the Whisper song by the Yin Yang Twins at Kansas
Oh,
City.
the Whisper song is gonna be hilarious, and all those little kids are gonna have their parents doing this to them, walking around, just like, "Oh my gosh, I thought this was off the radio, Timmy, little Timmy."
I'm gonna be having my black label wrapped around my neck, my chain, and just rocking out some Whisper song.
We found a Swiftie amongst us. I knew Dan was a robot.
Of
I
course he
knew it.
is. How the hell that would be kind of ridiculous.
He called him too. He got him too. I just saw that. Yeah. No, if Taylor Swift was going to be there, I'd be all set. I'd be out because there'd be literally nobody cared about those cards. So they're doing a good job with what they're kind of evolving or whatever. I did also hear that Long Beach is going to be like twice as big, or it's in the bigger side of the convention or something too. So that's good because it felt very small. But I think we're about hour and 20, hour and 30. We're going to probably start wrapping up, I think, around here. So if you guys want to maybe throw some last minute questions in the chat, if you have any or whatever, we'll try to answer any here. And also, if you just want to say what's up, hi guys, I appreciate you tuning in. I'm looking forward to this next year, though. This coming year, I'm going to definitely be taking over from where old school is taking a step back. I'm going to be taking a step forward, I think, and going to more and more conventions because I do feel like it's just a lot of fun. And like since I stopped doing lives, I just and this is just a personal thing for me. I just don't interact with the hobby as much or interact with people. Like I was spending 5 to 8 hours talking to people on my streams, even if they were texting, I was talking. It felt much more social. I want that social aspect more, and I get it at shows. Like it's such a huge hit of endorphin for me. Like I was literally just like driving back from the show like this weekend, just thinking to myself, I'm gonna work one of these in once a month, like just for
Yeah.
my own sanity's sake, just to go out and be in front of people. So I'm excited about that. So hopefully you're excited too, Ray, because I'm seeing you're doing a lot of vending as well. I hope to see that continues. Like, what collecticons are you planning to make this rest of the year?
So Kansas City, obviously,
Mhm.
Charlotte, and then and Dan, please answer this in the chat because I don't know yet where you're at, but Houston possibly. I know he was saying Houston possibly as well. I
I'm gonna have
don't.
to cut you on that one though. That one I'm gonna have to say no, no, don't. I don't agree with Houston. But why Houston? Why do you think Houston?
Um, it's just add another vending collecticon to go in. You know, it's just another place to sell. That's it. I mean, there's nothing special that I thought about the city, and not to hate on Houston, but it's nothing to do with that. It's just I feel like I can actually acquire the inventory to do another con every like 2 months or so, 2 to 3 months between sending off to PSA. And I would love to do Denver. That, by the way, Denver, I think we've talked about this. Denver is a top tier spot to go to.
Denver's like top three. Yeah, no,
Oh yeah.
Denver is one of the ones you should travel to. Anyone who's listening, you have it. If
Yes.
you're thinking of going to one, I personally think Denver's one of just location wise. Like it has a great vibe. The city of
Yeah.
Denver.
It's awesome.
It's for
But it's
CollectCon.
just
It's a perfect vibe.
But dude, we would have what is it? Charlotte and Denver, and I think one more. It's like all within a almost like a month period. I forget the exact dates, but they're so close. It's like they're just I am not big enough of a whale to be able to sell at all those.
That was my worry with Kansas City was that I was worried that if I did Kansas City, that I wouldn't have the inventory that I wanted for Long Beach, and I would be spending a lot of time traveling and effort. Um, but like I said in the beginning of the stream, I do think you're going to do good at Kansas City. I'm not regretting it because I still do feel like it's between too many shows for me personally. But like, I think people are going to do better than I was giving it credit for in the beginning.
Well, I mean,
I think there's opportunity everywhere, right?
I, I've I've talked to some of the guys who were there last year, and they did say compared to other collecticons, just to be upfront, everybody knows it is a little bit slower than the other ones. But I would also say this: it's like you never know, man. You know, you never know how it's going to work out for you because you just may like I crushed at Orlando and I didn't expect it at all. Uh, Shout out Dan's section at the time because we absolutely demolished Nick's section and we didn't even like look at them the entire time because that's how much we were just glowing above them. We were like the whole section was actually floating above Nick's section, crushing it that bad. It was awful. I felt bad for Nick a little bit, but yeah. I just had to. We had a competition, by the way. I'm not gloating, but it was a competition to see what section would do better.
Is there a way to put a poll in the chat? I can run a poll, can't I? Someone who's more familiar with StreamYards, is there a way to run polls, or do I have to have like the premium here? Because I want to put a poll up if I can about like, what's the best CollectCon remaining to go to if you could only pick like one, or just maybe just what. So I don't see a poll thing on here though. Settings, no. Okay, no. So there's no poll thing. I probably have to have like I'm sure there is an ability to do it, but I probably have to have like the premium, or I have to have more savvy than that. That's unfortunate. But I think that all the collecticons, probably looking at them, most likely have some sort of opportunity. My worry about Houston though is that it's, first of all, hot and humid as hell, and I just don't like that type of humidity. But my second concern though is like Texas wasn't so great last time. Like last time I went to Texas, I wasn't that happy with how it turned out, and I could blame it not having my Magikarp hat, but I want to say it was more than that, though. It was probably a little more than that, and so I feel like if it wasn't good in Fort Worth, which they advertise as Dallas, I don't know how Houston will work out for me, especially in a time where like the collectibles typically slump a little bit, like in the summer, because it's sort of when it's summertime. It's at the end of the summer, right?
No, Houston's like November. Either way,
Oh, so it's
You're talking
maybe
to a
the
Florida
weather
boy.
isn't as much of an issue then if that's the case.
You're talking to a Florida boy, dude. Like, go take a shower and then put on your shirt, and that's what I'm dealing with every single day
I
in
just have
terms of humidity.
concerns, I guess, about Houston more than I would about other places, and so that's why but the fact that it's last of the year, that is something. I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about it. I'm gonna think about that one. I do think that a lot of the time at a Collecticon in November, things will sell very well because the holidays coming up. A lot of parents will be there with their kids, and they're going to buy them gifts while they're there as Christmas gifts or early presents, and they're going to use it as an excuse to spend money. You can give like sales, like early Black Friday sales, to encourage those buys, and I think that'll do better than what online purchases do around that time typically, because like people don't buy Pokemon for other people online as much, they buy it for themselves. But when you're at an event, I think you're more likely to do that for like putting something on the tree. So maybe a November event is the move. I don't know.
Well, the other thing is, and I would just offer this piece of advice to you, is don't let Fort Worth and what happened there ruin future Collecticons for you going forward. Because, dude, you could do Kansas City this weekend and absolutely crush when everybody expects you to do a slower venue and just crush it. You never know, man. Because a lot of the times the buyer pool can be kind of random, right? You maybe hope to get some of those bigger buyouts at one shot, but sometimes it's just random, man. You expect things to happen and it doesn't happen. Um, I mean, I did decent at Fort Worth. I didn't do as well as what I did at Orlando, but I wouldn't say I was unhappy with it at all. But it certainly wouldn't ever give me pause for going to there again. Look forward, man.
I like Texas because of how cheap it was to travel. So I don't consider it like I didn't consider it to be a total fail. I'll be forthright about that. I still walked away happy with in that regard. Like I made money on it. I didn't lose money, but at the same time, it wasn't what I was expecting, I guess. So maybe you're right. Maybe having expectations that anything could happen is probably smart. And so to cap it off, that's probably good advice. Be prepared for anything. Be prepared for literally nothing to sell or literally everything to sell. But I will say, if your stuff isn't selling on day one, the beautiful thing about CollectCon is you have 2 days. You can on day two lower your prices and readjust your table. You can change everything and you can make adjustments. So that's a nice thing. I will
Yeah.
say that the algorithm or the AI generator is actually right. I think there's a lot of analysis paralysis on these the CollectCon locations. I'm probably one of those at fault, but I'm only human, Dan. We can't all be robots and literally not ever mess up. So I agree. A little bit analysis paralysis on that one. Probably you're right, but
I
it's
mean,
just
what's funny
Houston,
is
man.
I sold 0 packs at Fort Worth, which was kind of crazy. Zero. I looked over to my right one time, and and Old School was selling 400 packs, I think, of Crown Zenith. I think. And I had Fusion Strike, Brilliant Star, and Evolving Skies. Not one pack sold the whole time.
Yeah, I didn't sell. So I in Fort Worth, I brought a whole tower. I shipped for like $80, a huge thing to Peak because he's just a G, and he brought it with him to the convention. He lugged it there like an hour away. The man lives like an hour away. He brought it in his car. It was so nice of him, and I didn't sell a single pack to anyone. I shipped it back to myself, and that felt bad, man. But you know what? Would I bring it again? Absolutely, because in Denver, I sold out of my packs because I was up in the front. It with booster packs. Here's a little secret sauce: booster packs, modern booster packs, will only sell in the front of the convention. If you're not in the front of the convention, the only way that people are going to buy a pack, it's going to be like with a purchase, there'll be a couple packs to make up the rest of like the $20 or whatever that they're spending. It's going to be on small little amounts because you're priced really well and they're just going to buy it in addition. They already spent their money in the beginning of the convention buying from the first 100 people who had those modern packs. So they're not at the back of the convention buying modern booster packs. So that is one thing, is that if you can get a sense of where you're at in the convention, that will help you. That's one thing I can tell you. It's cut and dry. If you're in the front, your modern packs will sell. If you're in the back, they won't. That's it. That is you can price them overpriced, and if you're in the front, they'll sell. I had $5 Crown Zenith packs at Orlando in the back, and I couldn't sell a single one. There were people selling them for $8 up front in the front of the convention that sold out. Lots of people. So that'll show you. And then people, by the time they get to you, they're like, oh, if I would have known you had $5 packs, I wouldn't have spent $40 on 5. I would have spent $40 on 8, here. So,
Indeed. Agree.
so that being said, everyone, I appreciate you. We're going to wind it down the stream here. If you haven't already, I know I said it in the beginning, but I'm going to say it again. Go give this man a follow. Ray put up with me for a whole hour and a half on this stream. First time. He didn't know what he was getting into on this channel. Well, maybe he did, but we appreciate it. But yes, we are going to probably kind of finish off. So everyone who came here, thank you so much. Go to the comments down below or the description. I have Ray's channel linked. I'm going to be doing another stream here very soon. And Ray, good luck at Collecticon. Do you want to say anything, any last
No,
minute?
well, all I really would want to say is just, thank you to everybody who's always hanging out, who I talk to on a daily basis. I appreciate you all my friends. You guys just make this hobby so much more fun, and you're the reason why, keep active on a daily basis. Selling, doing all that kind of stuff is great, but being able to hang out with a large group of awesome people like you guys on a daily basis is what makes it really just awesome. So thank you guys.
And I will say the same. Thank you for all for supporting, and we'll see you guys on the next one. And go check Ray out at CollectCon if you're going to see him in Kansas, and go check us out at Long Beach. We'll see you guys on the next one.